everybody. Welcome to a special episode of the Nicholas Snow Show on PromoHomo.TV. For those of you who are tuning into my show for the first time, and you very well may be because of my guest today, I want you to know that PromoHomo.TV expanded into a full-fledged online broadcast network with this summer with 33 episodes across 5 series. Our fall season is very much underway, and I've been looking forward to having Nigel on my show for months. So, Nigel Ashford is the creator, producer, and host of the online television program OUTspoken, which showcases LGBTQIA plus people of all colors, backgrounds, and ethnicities while uncovering untold stories and realities. Originally from Birmingham, Alabama, Nigel attended the University of South Alabama, where he fell in love with media, majored in broadcast journalism, and went on to work for several years as a reporter on radio and television. More recently, Nigel has used his communication and marketing skills to empower nonprofit organizations. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and in addition to growing his own media company, he is a social media digital manager for a national corporation. So Nigel is coming up on the show, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I also want to give a big shout out to those people that have signed on as subscribers to PromoHomo.TV using the Patreon platform. You can now subscribe to PromoHomo.TV for as little as $3 a month, and above my head throughout the show, you're going to be able to find the link to do that if so inspired. I have 3 patrons so far, but you got to start somewhere, and I want to thank them: Brad Furr, G. Francis Giles, and Ron DeHart. So big shout out to them. With that said, I'll be back with my guest of honor, Nigel, after this.
You're with me, it's alright. Together, all our lives, a new star is inside. We're falling, it feels right. It's okay to hold me. You know where I wanna be. It's okay to hold me.
This season, as my regular viewers know, I have a new theme song, and I love being able to see my guests dancing backstage to it, and I hope that you're dancing to it at home. If you're watching live, I can put your question or comment on screen, so please feel free to interact with us. And without further delay, I want to welcome to the show Nigel Ashford. Welcome, Nigel.
Hey, Nick. How are you doing, man?
Fantastic. It's great to see you, and I'm glad that this is finally happening. I know we talked about it months ago.
Me too, man. I'm really excited, Nick. What an introduction, man, because the music, the theme music, I was jamming. I was like, oh, wow, now this is how you start a show.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And you and I are using the same platform. I want to give them a shout out, StreamYard.
Yeah.
It's just really revolutionized our ability to do what we love and to reach the people that we want to reach. It's quite spectacular.
It truly is, Nick. And you've really given me a lot of advice in the past and how to use it. And it really evolved my show as well with the platforms and the different like special abilities and different navigations that it has. Man, StreamYard is amazing. It's way better than Zoom.
Well, I'm loving it. So, Nigel, for people that haven't heard of Outspoken before, why don't you share with us what the show is?
Okay. So Nick, let me just start off with saying how first it kind of got started to give me the idea. One thing that with Outspoken, I was a part of groups of LGBTQ men of color, African American, Hispanic, Asian, Dominican, and everybody was talking about topics or subjects that had to do with their very own being of life, and their stories weren't being told, and these topics weren't being told in media. So I said, how about I just create that platform? And I wanted to create a place and a space where these topics are able to get out and people understand that they're not alone and they're not the only people going through it. So we talked about everything from raising LGBTQ children of color to experiencing homelessness as LGBTQ youth, struggling with rape and sexual assault as heterosexual and homosexual men of color, experiencing discrimination within our own LGBTQ community, and also fostering awareness and inclusion for students at HBCUs, historically Black colleges. So we really hit all the realms so far. We are on season 1 just ended. We just hit 19 episodes. We're having a special 20th episode on November 20th, where we're interviewing the author of B-Boy Blues. Jesse Smollett is getting ready to make a movie from his book. So he's going to be joining us on November 20th to talk about his book and it becoming a movie. So we've been really hitting it hard.
Well, I want to share with you, and I don't think that I shared this with you before, but at the time, over the summer, when I was preparing to launch my network, it was after the horrible murder of George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matter movement was achieving a level of visibility that it had never seen, to my knowledge.
Right.
And one of the things that I was realizing at the time was that it was my responsibility as a white man who has lived a life of privilege because of the color of my skin to
Correct.
pay very close attention to what Black and brown people were saying, what all of you were experiencing, and to listen. As a journalist, I would have been in a position where I could actually invite people on the show and ask questions, which is really the one instance where I've realized that it's okay to do that. Because another key message I'm getting, and let me know what you think about this, is it's not up to you to tell me what I need to do to deal with systemic racism. It's up to me to sort of figure it out as basically a layperson. But because I'm a journalist and I have this platform, I wanted to go out of my way to amplify Black and brown voices, people that have been disenfranchised or marginalized in any way, shape, or form. You're extremely talented and you're doing great work, and I would have loved to have you on my show regardless of the color of your skin. But just to put it out there, I specifically wanted to have you on my show because you're a Black man living in the United States at this moment in time, and you're creating really valuable content that's addressing these issues head on.
Thank you so much.
So, what would you, what is your take when I say I understand it's not your responsibility to tell me what to do with this situation? How are you responding to the white people in your life that are looking to you for some sort of guidance and leadership? Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? What's your take on that?
Nicholas, I think when you started off with saying the term just listening, with a lot of my Caucasian or white friends who are LGBTQ and who are heterosexual, they ask me, how are you? from the situation that took place with George Floyd, from the situation that took place with the other deaths of people who had lost their lives to murder. Pretty much what it is, just calling it out.
Yes.
To also talking about from the pandemic that we're going through. I had a lot of friends, and this is how you know that they care. They're specifically asking me, how are you dealing with everything that's going on in this situation? And I'm like, wow, thank you for understanding that what you're going through right now is totally different than what I'm going through, and that you're listening, and that you know that my struggle is not similar to your struggle. So to listen and to have that understanding that one thing is not affecting everybody in the same way. Also, for those people who are really, for people who are Caucasian or white, who are really going to the polls and saying, hey guys, we really need to vote for the people who's trying to help those who are African American or who are minorities, or those people who are marching in protest, saying, who's marching in the front and are Caucasian and white, and saying, I just want to be here for you. I'm not African American. I don't know what you're going through every day, but I'm seeing it, and I want to step up and do my part in making a difference, in making sure you're treated like an equal human being. Because history, I hate to say it, it's just repeating itself. Back in the 1960s, the only reason why any changes took place is because the dogs that bit people, the fire hose that were used on African Americans in the 1960s in Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee, that was all showed on television. And John F. Kennedy was saying, I didn't know none of this was going on. Same thing that's happening now. Just because it was finally caught on tape that an African American man was killed and could not breathe, people are starting to realize, wait a minute, this police brutality thing is real. And it takes a series of things to take place within our community for people to finally have an understanding. Even from the Rodney King trials, they saw this man being beaten to death, but riots took place because it was caught on film and these men still got off scot-free. So I think Will Smith said it better. This is not new. It's just being recorded.
Point well taken. One of my awarenesses was, even though I've been an activist for decades and on the front lines of what is now described as the LGBTQIA plus civil rights movement and various forms of that phrase, I, with my new awareness, evolving awareness, have looked back and realized, oh yeah, I might have been in the same protest or the same parade, but my experience has been 100% different from the person next to me who is a person of color.
Correct.
And I can leave the protest or the pride parade and I'm having a different life experience than they are when they leave the protest and the pride parade. They're dealing with these things 24/7. So
Right.
that's totally something that I'm just more aware of than ever before. You grew up in Alabama.
Yes.
What are some of your experiences around? I guess, did you come out in Alabama? And what are some of your experiences around coming out as a black man, wherever it may have taken place?
Right. First of all, I was brought up in the church. My great grandparents were the head deacon and deaconess of their church. My grandmother was head of the choir. On top, and they were Baptist denomination. So imagine a kid in Birmingham, Alabama, being brought up in a Baptist, Southern Baptist denomination, while also for 12 years of my life, from first grade all the way to 12th grade, Catholic school. So in Catholic school, we were taught that being LGBTQ was a sin. And in their bylaws, if you were caught being a part of the LGBTQ community as staff or as a student, you were either fired or expelled. no substitutions. And when you signed that contract that you're joining the school, you had to go by their bylaws because they're a private institution. And then being brought up in in a Black Baptist church on how homosexuality is the devil and evil. So getting it at school in a place that I couldn't even really express myself, and also getting it at church and at home as well, and just coming up and knowing I was having these feelings, knowing I thought I was a little different in some way, I started to resent and hate who I was. So I started to join organizations at my school that was against homosexuality. So we had one kid to get kicked out after he was found out of being gay. And I was a part of the people who were against it, saying, you know what? It's wrong. It's a sin. It's of the devil. He should have been kicked out, because I was having hate for myself. I really didn't explore my sexuality until college. Um, I think I was 19 years old, a freshman, and I drove 2 hours away into another city, into a smaller city, in a gay bar, just to wear a hoodie and sit in the corner. And I went on Wednesday night when there was not that many people, because I didn't want anybody to see me. And I stayed for an hour, but that hour was like a lifetime. And I really didn't have my first interaction, my first kiss with a guy until I was 20. And it was also in my mind that I was saying to myself, I have to marry a woman. And in my mind, I was strategizing how I wanted my life to be. I will marry a woman. I will have those 2 kids. When my kids graduate, I will most likely divorce that woman and then live a private life with a private partner. Like, at 20 years old in my dorm, having that conversation with myself.
Well, you certainly changed that plan along the way at some point.
Yes, yes. It's funny how the change and acceptance given by our, not just LGBT community, but all communities, and that made me into an advocate. Thanks to rules being changed of legalizing gay marriage, and more people taking the stance of stepping up and showing that being LGBTQ doesn't define who they are. They really helped define my life and gave me the courage to know that my life doesn't have to be a length of semi-happiness. I can be truly happy with loving somebody, with same gender loving, you know? So it took the sacrifices of so many people before me.
Well, that's a gorgeous story, and it inspiring. It actually gives me goosebumps. Um, and now you're out in the media, and you're
Yes,
doing it in Nashville, Tennessee.
yes.
That's bold.
Yes. And it was like a second coming out, because I don't know if you know this, Nick. You know, when they say your Facebook is kind of like what you want people to see in a way,
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's like yeah.
and your Instagram is like, you're flexing for the gram, and then and then your what did they? It was like your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn. Like, each one had its own
Your
space.
grinder. I know they all. I've
Yeah,
seen that.
you're
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was, Nick. And for my Facebook, I was being followed by family members, grandparents, church members from my old church, classmates. When I started this show, it was really like a second coming out, because I only came out to friends and my mom, my dad, and one grandmother.
So
And
basically, three people in your family knew that you were gay at the time you decided to start a gay talk show.
pretty much, pretty much, pretty much. I moved away. I'm in Nashville and there in Alabama, and no one really asked questions. And I bring female friends to like events. So they just assume, okay, maybe they're dating. They just never ask any questions. So it was really like a second coming out.
Well, I admire you and respect you for the choices that you have made,
Thank you.
facing increasing challenges, especially where you are geographically and from your traditional religious spiritual background. So I think it's great. I personally see a great future for you around
Thank you.
broadcasting, following your passion, and journalism because of the depth and quality of the conversations that you've put together in your inaugural season. And I was wondering if you could talk about some of your episodes that were most impactful, either for your guest, your viewers, or both.
Um, okay. I think one of my most impactful ones was, I think it was my second show, actually. And it was Life After Heteronormality. And we invited African American male, his daughter, a woman who was cheated on by her gay husband, and a behavioral therapist.
I think you need to sell the script to Tyler Perry.
I know it does sound like a whole Tyler. It does sound like a whole Tyler
Yes.
Perry script. But I will say the reason why it was impactful is because it really kind of defined. I loved my first episode, it was great, but my second episode, I really learned something, because we always clap for the man who comes out. We always support because he's going through a struggle, especially the African American man who's been married and who's feel like he was trapped for so long, and he couldn't be his whole self due to archaic ways. But now he is blossomed and now he's ready to be out in the world, and we always clap for him. But when I spoke to that woman who talked about 10 years of her life being taken, who talked about, she wanted children, but she didn't understand why her husband would not give it to her, to talk about after being divorced, it took her 5 years to finally start dating again because she had trust issues. And then when she would date, she was too afraid to get in a committed relationship because she didn't know if that man was gay or not. So she would have sexual relations with them and then leave them alone because she was too afraid to find out more. And that did not enter into my mind about what the woman goes through. And that really defined my show, that I wanted to hit all spaces, that showing that there's no wrong, there's no right. I wanted to hear from everyone who is involved with the LGBT community. And in going through what she's going through, she started an organization called Straight Spouses, where she helps and assists in therapeutic ways spouses who were involved in a marriage where their spouse turned out to be LGBTQ. So she helps them out by not teaching them how to hate, but teaching them how to heal. And then she also helps out marriage, those who are in the brink of divorce, and finding out how they can help their children, tell their children, and have like a positive a more positive impact at the end of their marriage. So I didn't even know something like that even existed. And she also donates to LGBTQ causes, and she shows up to Pride and gives out her pamphlets and say, there's men who are there who are down low or private, who are married, who comes to Pride and say, hey, if you're ready to come out to your wife, we are here for your assistance. We want to try to make it as easy for you and for her or for him as possible, So I really loved, I think that was one of the stepping stones of like Oh my God. Like I never knew that this was taking place and how associated and how connected it is within our LGBT community. Um, I think another one is when I started my Outspoken book club. Once a month, I interview authors who are African American LGBTQ authors. And I interviewed the author of All Boys Aren't Blue, George Johnson, whose book has gained so much notoriety that Gabrielle Union is now about to make his book into a movie on Apple. So
Well, and she and her husband have been so amazingly supportive
they have.
of their trans daughter.
Yes, they really have, and we need more African American cis parents to do that. And with that book, he really dived in being African American, growing up, being gay, growing up. It really hit all the different spaces. And I cried reading that book because I never knew that I saw myself in somebody else. And it was such healing. And his book prompted for me to start my book club and read more from LGBTQ authors of color. There's so many novels and so many books out there that we can connect to and we get to know and hear these stories. And if we don't support or we don't hear, like those books are just collecting dust on the shelves. So I will say those are some of the two shows that really hit my platform that made me say, oh wow, this is what this show was meant to be.
Well, that's another thing I really appreciate about your role as a producer, in that even though your program is new, you're evolving the production values and expanding your own skill sets as a host. That you have gone after and attained amazing guests who
Thank
are
you.
so established in their own fields, who are showing up to have these conversations, and I think that's really powerful. What's been the most controversial episode that you've done, if any of
Ooh.
them have been controversial?
I think the most controversial have been, I think it was speaking on, what was it? Oh, we had a show for bisexual men of color. Um, it had to do with a certain singer, I forgot his name, coming out as bisexual, and he was receiving so much heat just because he was bisexual. And it really hits African American men very hard when they do so. So I invited these two. One was an individual who's a love coach, and he's a bisexual man. And another was a marketing entrepreneur in Atlanta who's a bisexual man as well. And they really schooled me in bisexuality in men because we associate men, black women, and gay men, we associate bisexuality as, oh, you don't know that you're fully gay yet. Or, oh, you're just down low. You just want to play this masculine role and talk to women while talking to men.
I just want to throw in, I think that's a common misinterpretation of bisexual individuals across the board. That,
Yes,
oh, they just haven't figured it out yet. And it's hard for some people to accept that is, in fact, a sexual orientation. And of course,
correct.
as we're evolving as human beings, we have so many more labels, such as pansexual, for example. People can love anybody. But I do get what you're saying. Please continue.
Yes. And I will say they opened my eyes to just really seeing, because before that show, I was kind of 50-50 with bisexuals. But in listening to them and how they talked about, I had a girlfriend And I'm honest and upfront with them that I've been with men and I am bisexual. And just speaking to them and listening to like the statistics, and also talking about depression, how that hits a lot of African American men, and how it's really hard for them to find lifelong partners because Black women see them as weak due to loving another a man, and demasculate them, and gay men think of them as liars and cheaters. And I know that can be a very lonely experience. So I feel like that was the most, if I would say, controversial for me and them. And it was such a learning experience because I feel like they really truly taught me. And I knew they taught other people because I had Black female straight women friends, close friends, tune into that. And then my phone was ringing and they were like, oh my God, I feel like a huge a-hole right now. Because after listening to that, I didn't think that's how they felt.
So a lot of eyes were opened,
A
including
lot
your
of eyes
own,
were
for that
open.
show.
Yes, yes.
Um, we don't have to end this dramatically soon or anything like that, but is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you would like to talk about?
Um, I think one thing with Outspoken, and one thing that I just love about my show, I always ask people to use me. Use me, use me, use me. My network is a resource for you. My network is here for you. I want to try to create conversations for you, by you, for people of color. But one thing that I think hit home with my show was talking about discrimination within our own LGBTQ community. We had authors and publishers and journalists, one being the marketing coordinator, the communications coordinator for Grindr. He was on, and he's an African American male. He was talking about how they had to really change things up with Grindr because they were seeing things such as no blacks, no femmes, no Asians. It was verbiage like this that was being displayed on Grindr. And it's funny that the CEO of Grindr is an Asian male.
A
And
straight Asian male, I
a
think.
straight Asian male. So to see these,
Nothing against straight Asian men. It's just that happens to be the case.
but seeing these discriminatory words and people using the word preference, just because you use a word and say, hey, this is my preference, I hate to say, color is not a preference. A preference is maybe he's a little bit too short. Maybe he's a little bit too tall. Like maybe, but you're telling me no blacks, no Asians. That is the same thing that took place in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, and people saying no colors, whites only, colors only. No colors are allowed to enter here. And then when people see that on apps or anywhere, just, and I think they think, okay, this person is just seeing this on mine. No, this person is just seeing this on yours, another person's, another person's, and another person's. And it starts making you feel that you are unwanted within your own community. Even with Stonewall, when Stonewall was created, it was led by two transgender women of color. But if you watch the documentary, they talk about how the white gay men really hated the fact that these women was trying to lead this movement because that's not who they wanted viewed on the front end. And it sucks that we have to also have a Black gay pride. I talk to so many African American men and women who come into the LGBT community and they say, I'm excited because I'm in a space where everybody is different, everybody is welcoming, but I hate to say it, I experienced more prejudice and more discrimination from my white LGBTQ brothers than people who are straight and white. I remember
I'm. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I remember coming to Nashville when a guy tried to hit on me. He was Caucasian and he was like, I prefer UPS over FedEx any day. And I said, excuse me? What do you mean? You know, UPS is the brown box, FedEx is the white box. And I say, I first of all, how dare you try to demean my race all the way down to a box color? Two, that was the most weirdest pickup line I have ever heard in my life. But I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done within our own community before we ask people to change it with outside our community. And I think that's why I'm really excited to see during just the regular LGBTQ Pride in New York, how a lot of them march for LGBTQ people of color and how they were raising signs. And it was Caucasian people showing these signs about how they need to step up, where everybody knows that there is a problem in it.
I just wanted to let you know that Nani is watching from Thailand, and he says love, love, love regarding the episode. So thank you.
Thank you,
Um,
man.
One of the things that you touched upon is so mostly in the 90s, I was involved with a group called BWMT, Black and White Men Together. They also have a national organization. Some chapters change their name to Men of All Colors Together, Men of All Colors Together, MACT. And many people who were in the group did have and do have a racial preference for the men that they date. And I was wondering if you think that there is inherent racism in someone having a racial preference, or do you think that that can exist in the absence of racism? What's your take on that?
I think a lot of it is inherent because we're not born with the mindset of, I don't like this because of this. It's taught. It really is taught. And sometimes it's taught unknowingly. And I feel like
I,
that's the generation we're.
I wasn't talking about. I agree. Racism is taught and
Hmm.
learned, and that if I say, no fats, no femmes, no whatever, that I'm being bigoted. My question is, if I or someone else is their goal would be to be in a relationship with a person of color,
Hmm.
do you feel that attraction can exist apart from racism, or do you think that there is something inherently racist about someone, that one of the reasons they're attracted to you is specifically because of your ethnicity?
I would call that a fetish. If I'm answering your question correctly, I would call that a fetish. Would I call it racism? No. I would call it that you have a fantasy of me being dark skinned or brown skinned. You have this fantasy of my penis size being a certain number of inches. You have this fantasy of me being this aggressor and dominator, and that you're not with me for the right reason. Um, I'm sorry, Brian.
No, I was going to say I agree that all of those things do exist, and if they were part of somebody's attraction, that I can't say that word, fetishization, it's just it takes away one's humanity.
Yes.
It takes away one's humanity. So I look at myself very seriously, and I am attracted to men of all colors. I often find myself more attracted to men who are different than me, which is
Hmm.
almost everybody that isn't white. So I take a deep dive into the issue myself to check myself and
Hmm.
ask, all right, is this about something deeper?
Right.
But I love having the opportunity to ask the questions and to be honest about the topics. And these are some of the conversations that have been happening in groups like BWMT for decades.
And Brian, do you ask yourself,
It's Nicholas.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Nicholas,
I gave Brian the night off.
Nicholas, do you ask yourself, is it because I'm interested in the person, or is it because I'm fit?
No,
Because I
for me,
know,
it's always about the person.
okay,
It's always
okay,
about the person. I mean, I think that if you're going to date someone, you want to be attracted to them. But
correct,
no,
correct,
I'm interested in someone for the totality of who they are as a
correct.
human being. Uh, so that's my answer to it. But it's
Okay.
an ongoing exploration.
It is. It truly is.
So tell me what's ahead for your second season. I know you're taking a couple of months off in
Yes.
hiatus, but what's ahead for you?
Whew. Um, I think one thing that we are going to hit is HIV topics, especially during COVID, talking about the different types of Truvadas. Really, I want to invite our lesbian and transgendered individuals on to talk about sexual exploration with them. Because I feel like as a gay population, I think I always wonder, like, how do lesbians get off when there's no penis involved? And really just revealing the shade that just because I am the G in LGBTQ, I don't have to know, learn, or understand everybody else or really care about what they're going through. I feel like for us to be a community, we really have to have knowledge and understanding of everybody around the border. And we don't have, and if we have that knowledge, we can't make those prejudgments and those pre assumptions. You know what I mean? So I
Yes.
really want to hit that untapped thing where we really get down and talk to other people along the spectrum. I think I really just hit LGBTQ of color, but I really now want to hit across the spectrum, talking to lesbians of color, talking to trans people of color, talking to everybody and wanting to know their experiences for season two and just really doing a deep dive. I feel like we really hit Black men of color majority of this show and also talking about health within our community. So I think season two is really just going to be a deep dive and jumping into the different spectrums, especially pansexuality, asexuality, all these types of things. Talking about mental health, talking about the suicide rates in African American men of color being one of the highest. Just talking about those different types of topics that a lot of people don't know. So yeah, I'm really excited about season two. Season one, it was so hard for me to take a break because I was like, oh my God, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I was like, don't burn yourself out. And I think for anybody who wants to start a show and is doing it for a while, it's supposed to be fun, guys. This is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be sharing information, and it's just an extension of who you are and giving other people the platform to be who they are. So, but when you need that rest, take that break for yourself, rethink, regroup, and have a strategy for what's coming up next. I feel like I hit everything that I needed to hit for season one, and to start this from an idea and a dream, and it stemmed from therapy. So, going to a therapist and my therapist saying, "Do it. You want this? Do it. Don't think about it." I was saying, "How am I going to get these guests? How am I going to do this?" He said, just give yourself a timeline. And he was like, I'm going to give it for you 1 week, Nigel. Find your guests and do it. And went from one show now to 19 and 20. And don't, I would just, another thing for advice, don't step in your own way. If you say, oh my God, but who would listen to me? Oh my God, but who would watch? As long as you reach one person, As long as you touch the life of one person, that's all that matters.
That's beautifully stated. Outspoken showcases LGBTQIA plus people of all colors, backgrounds, and ethnicities while uncovering untold stories and realities. And one of the things that I love that you and I get to do in the context of producing our shows is we get to ask questions that we want to know the answers to.
Correct.
We get to explore topics that are going to help us evolve.
Right.
And I think that curiosity is very important. And I also want to give you kudos for talking about seeing a therapist, because there's lots of stigma against people that that want to pursue mental health support. And I see a therapist and swear by it, and encourage that opportunity for anyone out there that wants or needs it. So thank you for that as well.
No problem.
Well, I've really very much enjoyed having you on the show, and I'd love to have you on again after your next season, or sometime in your next season, to catch up on what you're up to.
Of course, and I would love you to come on my show as well.
Well, thank you. The answer is yes, I would love that. So if you stick there for a moment, I'll talk to you after the show, because I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you so much, Nigel Ashford.
No problem.
I hope that you have enjoyed my conversation with Nigel as much as I have. He's a remarkable young man doing really important work. And follow his example. Express your truth, face your fears, come out to your friends and family if it applies to you, and live your best life. I'll see you next time.
You're with me, it's alright. Together, all our lives, a new star is inside. We're falling, it feels right. It's okay to hope.